Senator, will you accept the election results?
Hillary Clinton said the election was stolen from her and that Trump was illegitimate. Kamala Harris agreed.
Senator,
we have Democrats now.
Yet another major Republican senator lobbying to be Donald Trump's vice president disgraced himself on national TV by refusing to commit to accepting the results of the upcoming election and trying to paint Democrats as the real threat to democracy, triggering a heated back and forth between him and the host interviewing him. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. All right, friends, this is yet another sign of the troubling trajectory of the Republican Party into full-bore fascism. By my count, this is the third Republican senator, major Republican senator, who is refusing to commit to accepting the results of the upcoming election as part of an audition to be Donald Trump's vice president. First, you had Tim Scott from South Carolina, J.D. Vance of Ohio, and now Marco Rubio of Florida. So we're going to play this clip and unpack it together.
Will you accept the election results of 2024 no matter what happens, Senator?
No matter what happens? No, if it's an unfair election, I think it's going to be contested by either side.
Senator, no matter who wins.
I think you're asking the wrong person. The Democrats are the ones that have opposed every Republican victory since 2000. Every single one. It's Hillary Clinton.
No Democrat has refused to concede. Hillary Clinton conceded. Senator, will you accept the election results?
Hillary Clinton said the election was stolen from her and that Trump was illegitimate. Kamala Harris agreed.
Senator,
we have Democrats now.
Senator, she conceded the election. She said that
Trump was illegitimate. She said that the election had been stolen. Kamala Harris agreed. By the way, there are Democrats serving in Congress today who in 2004 voted not to certify the Ohio electors because they said those machines had been tampered with. And you have Democrats now saying they won't certify 2024 because Trump is an insurrectionist and ineligible to hold office. So you need to ask them. I think have you ever asked the Democrat this question on your show? I bet you've never asked the Democrat that question.
Senator, you voted to certify the 2020 election, and here is what you said on that day that you voted to certify the 2020 election.
Yeah. Democracy is held together by people's confidence in the election and their willingness to abide by its results.
So by your own definition, are Donald Trump's claims undermining Americans' confidence in democracy, given that he has not conceded the last election, and he just said in recent days twice that he won Minnesota, Senator?
I think what undermines people's confidence in the election is when you have places like Wisconsin with over 500 illegal drop box locations, when you have places like Georgia where liberal groups are paying people $10 per vote. No, but listen, what undermines elections is when NBC News and every major news outlet in America in 2020 censored the Biden laptop story, which turned out to be true, not Russian misinformation, unprecedented. Only you couldn't even talk about it on social media. They would deplatform you. People look at all this. They look at what happened in Arizona, 200,000 ballots that had the signatures didn't match. People will lose confidence, and it opens the door to this.
I have to jump in here. Senator, you voted to certify the election, and
because at that stage in the process, you have no options.
Senator, you voted to certify the election. Nothing has been censored on this program. Hillary Clinton.
And Hillary Clinton conceded, which is a great segue here. So again, I mean, she just hoisted Marco Rubio by his own petard here. He didn't say on January 6th, listen, I think this election is illegitimate, but I have no choice to certify it. That's not what he did. Marco Rubio, as cowardly as he was then, is nowhere near as cowardly as he is now. He did the right thing by certifying President Biden's victory. He could have joined the 147 other lawmakers after the insurrection who continued to not certify the results of President Biden's victory. More on that in a second. But I want to remind everybody, because Marco Rubio is doing what many other Republicans do when they can't defend Trump. They attempt desperately to deflect to Hillary Clinton. This is what Hillary Clinton said within hours of Donald Trump's victory in November 2016.
Last night, I congratulated Donald Trump and offered to work with him on behalf of our country. I hope that he will be a successful president for all Americans.
She did that formally. She did it publicly. She did it within hours of her defeat. Donald Trump never did anything like that. He never formally or publicly conceded the 2020 election to President Biden. Instead, unlike Hillary Clinton, he attempted to sue his way into a second term unelected. He lost 60 out of 61 court cases, both on standing and on merit. He disgraced himself even in front of conservative judges, Trump-appointed conservative judges. That's how ludicrous and ridiculous this case was. A 6-3 conservative supermajority on the Supreme Court refused to take up any of the cases. That's how ridiculous it was. Every election recount and audit has only reaffirmed the results of President Biden's victory. And he also, of course, attempted to trigger an insurrection. On January 6th, Barack Obama, who was the incumbent Democrat president, who was backing Hillary Clinton against Trump, Barack Obama didn't do that. Joe Biden, the current president, was the vice president when Donald Trump won the 2016 election. He didn't try to throw out votes that he didn't like, which is exactly what then President Trump tried to do with then Vice President Mike Pence. You see that? If Donald Trump's logic is true, if Donald Trump's, assessment of the constitutional powers and prerogatives afforded to the incumbent administration, the vice president, to just basically overturn the results of the election, if that's the case, then why didn't Hillary Clinton, President Obama, Vice President Biden just say, no, we're not going to accept the results. We toss out the votes we don't like? Because Democrats are infinitely more principled than Republicans. That's simply an objective fact. So Marco Rubio says, there were people who voted against or tried to vote against certifying the results of President Bush in 2004. You're right. Many of those things were ridiculous. But those were a handful of attempts which never came through. 147, on the other hand, Republicans issued formal objections to President Biden's victory. 147. We're talking orders of magnitude more in terms of volume than the handful of Democrats along the way who objected to George W. Bush's victory in 2000, which made much more sense given that margin was settled by like 500 votes in Florida, and a sympathetic right-wing Supreme Court in 2000 effectively ended the recount process. There's infinitely greater reason for Democrats to issue a symbolic objection to Bush in 2000, and yet nothing on the scale that we've seen here. There was no insurrection. Hundreds of Democrats did not voice formal or offer formal objections to Bush's victory in 2000 or 2004. They've got nothing on this. This is a false equivalence. There is nothing that comes close. You take all the attempts by Democrats to object to or reject the results of Republican victories and you stack them up, and it doesn't come close to what Donald Trump's Republican Party did in 1 year, one election cycle in 2020. That's how much worse Republicans are on this. It's not even close. It's the difference in moral mass between a pea and an elephant standing on a pea. As a matter of fact, the Cato Institute, the right-wing Cato Institute, wrote this really good article in 2022 called, Yes, Democrats have called some elections illegitimate. GOP election denialism is far worse. When Democrats voiced dismay at MAGA Republicans' belief that Trump got cheated out of victory in the 2020 election, a common response goes, well, Democrats do it too, but Hillary, but Stacey Abrams, but Al Gore, but Jimmy Carter. Anti-Trump types are willing to concede that Trump's claims about the 2020 steal were baseless, but they insist the problem exists on both sides and that it's rank partisanship, not to mention hypocrisy, to claim that Trumpified GOP election denialism should be treated as uniquely disqualifying. There are many instances in which a nuanced view of an issue gets unfairly slammed as both sidesism. This isn't one of them. Have politicians and other public figures from both parties made ill-advised and sometimes entirely spurious statements questioning the legitimacy of elections that favored the other party? Yes, they have, and it's a bad and toxic habit. In particular, there are good reasons to be harshly critical of some Democratic claims casting aspersions on election integrity in the United States, and the Democratic Party needs to do some serious soul-searching on the subject. But the GOP's post-2020 election denialism is an entirely different league. It is vastly more toxic, and it is uniquely dangerous. While Republican activists have compiled a long list of Democrats denying election results, there's even a 12-minute supercut of clips put out by the RNC, they revolve mainly around three issues: the 2016 election, the 2000 election, and the 2018 gubernatorial election with Stacey Abrams. Okay? And again, they go through the lists, the contrast, okay, breaking it down. Again, folks, this is huge. This is so important for us to establish here. Hillary Clinton conceded that she believed Donald Trump was illegitimate in the sense that he didn't win the popular vote, so he never had a popular mandate, that he received beneficial election meddling from foreign adversaries like Russia. All of these things are infinitely more substantive than the claims that came from MAGA and from Trump, that election results were just switched, that Democrats hacked voting machines and just changed results. And again, this is where it gets really important. These claims from the Republicans came down from the top. One thing I hear a lot when I point this out is some people say, well, listen, the polls say in 2016 that, a majority of Democrats thought that Donald Trump was not a legitimate president. Perhaps that's the case. But it wasn't Barack Obama spreading that information or spreading that claim. It wasn't then Vice President Joe Biden. It wasn't even Hillary Clinton. They weren't going around saying the election was stolen, the election was stolen, the election was stolen, the election was stolen. Hillary Clinton really won. Donald Trump really lost. That's not what happened. If you want to say that the general sentiment among Democrats organically, because they didn't like Trump or because they don't like that we have indirect elections for chief executives, made people think that, and also the fact that, again, Russia actively and publicly interfered in the 2016 on Trump's behalf. If you want to say that those things contributed to a sentiment among partisan Democrats that Trump was illegitimately elected, fine. But those claims, again, are much more substantive, and they weren't being fed by Democratic leaders in a cultish way to their base. It was irresponsible for Donald Trump and his supporters, people who knew better, people in the Trump administration, people in the Trump campaign, people in Republican leadership, to proliferate these lies actively. There is no equivalent of that on the Democratic side. And Marco Rubio knows that. But it's super pathetic and once again shows there is no room for elected Republicans in this country. They need to lose every single election. None. They can't be trusted. This is a party that hates this country so much because they hate Democrats. The only election result they will ever accept is ones in which they win. Then you don't need to audit those. You don't need to ask questions about those. Just let those go. Take those at face value. But if a Democrat wins, we really can't commit to accepting the results, because one time Hillary Clinton said Trump was illegitimate after she formally and publicly conceded. And also Al Gore and also Stacey Abrams. Weird, deranged, pathetic stuff coming from an authoritarian cult of personality with no limiting principle. So as the election approaches, keep that in mind, folks. They should lose every election. Vote against Republicans every damn chance you get, because democracy is on the line. Let me know what you think in the comments.